Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, and let the roll reflect. A majority of members are present and a quorum has been established with the absence of Councilmember Vaughn. Tonight we will be recognizing new employees, and we have 2 new employees to introduce today. The first will be introduced by City Forester, TJ Lucas. Welcome, TJ.
Hello, City Council. My name is TJ Lucas. I am the City Forester for City Hastings. This is Ashley running. She's actually a Green Corps member. She'll be working with us until the September, or she started working in September 2022. And she'll be serving with us until August 2023, and will be helping me with a lot of the forestry work that I am not able to get done. So she'll be doing a lot of work with tree inventory and buckthorn removal, and many other small projects that we'll be working on, and we are happy to have her helping us. So thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet everyone, and I'm excited to do some great things for Hastings.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also from the Parks Department, we have with us Chris Jenkins, and he will be introducing Leander DeVilliers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. I am introducing Leander DeVilliers. He is our newest parks keeper, hired just a few weeks ago, September 26th. Leander is originally from South Africa, and he's been working on farms in the United States since 2010. And more recently, since about 2005, on some farms very near Hastings, just on the outside. So very familiar with the area. Finally, permanently in the United States in 2019 after marrying his wife, Alyssa. And they have a 5-month-old baby girl, Madison. Congratulations. Daughters are the best. I'm not biased at all. I have 2. Outside of work, Leander likes enjoying time with family, friends, in the outdoors, camping, hiking, boating, those sorts of things. We are certainly excited to have him as part of our team. He comes to us with a wide array of knowledge and experience. A great attitude, get it done work ethic, and a really good sense of humor that I've learned so far. So, Leander, we're looking forward to him being a great addition to our team for years to come. So, welcome, Leander.
Thanks, Chris,
Thanks.
and welcome,
Nice to meet-
Leander.
Yeah, nice to meet all of you.
Welcome. And then we have a promotion. We have a recent promotion who will be introduced by Chief John Townsend. Welcome, Chief.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to introduce Caitlin Newman, who was recently promoted, or actually not even that recently, July, as our newest full-time firefighter paramedic. Caitlin joined us in August of 2020, and since joining our department in 2020, she has completed all of her fire training. She just recently completed her paramedic certification, and during that same amount of time, she got married to her husband, Andy, who's in attendance here. And they brought a new baby into the world named Charlie. So she's been very busy for the last not quite 2 years. So we're really happy to have her here. In attendance tonight are her parents with us too, Brian and Melanie, and we are super excited to have her as part of the team. She's a great addition to our city, and we look forward to her bringing her strong work ethic and great attitude to our department.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Welcome, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Definitely an asset to the department. If council and new employees would please step forward, we'll take some photos. Dan will take some photos.
I didn't see you there.
Yeah, I was going to hide in.
Nice to meet you, Tina. Welcome to, and Leanne, oh, I love that.
Okay, tonight we have a presentation from Attorney Jim Strumman. Will provide an update on the Suburban Rate Authority. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council, staff. And I appreciate the opportunity given to me by Dan Watika, your city administrator. My name is Jim Strumman. I'm an attorney with Kennedy and Graven, and I've been general counsel to the Suburban Rate Authority since 1990. And the city of Hastings has been a longtime member of the SRA. I do understand that the council will be considering continued membership in the SRA, and I assume that you have a short memo with bullet points that I have prepared, which gives you a history and its purposes and some of the accomplishments that we have achieved over the years. I won't go through everything because I know you have a busy agenda, but I'm happy to answer any question you might have, even in mid-sentence, no problem. The SRA is a collective municipal voice before the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, but is not limited to that. It does address common issues of municipalities in right-of-way management of utilities, which is a significant part of the public works, and rates and franchises between the city and, in your case, XL Electric and CenterPoint Gas. I know you have a small area served by Dakota Electric, which also can be franchised. The SRA currently has 32 members. The list of members, I think, is attached to your memo. It's a large joint powers with a high population. We certainly value every member because every member counts when you have a collective voice before a state agency like the Public Utilities Commission. And they do value the municipal perspective, but quite frankly, rate cases, a lot of the dockets in the PUC are intensive and lengthy, and single municipalities generally cannot sustain a presence there. One exception is the city of Minneapolis. They've been quite active in recent years. We do have a current rate case that is relevant to the city of Hastings, the XL Electric. It's a multi-year petition for over $600 million in increased rates. We typically select issues that are germane to cities, and we have submitted testimony on street lighting and municipal pumping. We've had some very good developments that have tangible cost savings to cities in municipal pumping by separating them out of the commercial class that has more ebbs and flows. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but there are sales true-ups in utility rates, and we were able to save $621,000 for municipal pumping customers from 2021 as a result of the effect COVID had on the private businesses. But cities pumping services were going strong, and they, as a result, did not have to pay a surcharge. We are also, in this case, looking at the rate design for cities that have changed over to LED lighting in streetlights. We feel they're paying too much from other entities that are still using high-pressure sodium, and we hope to have an adjustment there. One annual savings that has been realized through SRA efforts are outage credits for XL Electric. It's part of a service quality tariff, and it actually arose about 10 years ago when a neighborhood in Roseville was getting constant outages, and they weren't getting any attention from XL, and they brought it to our attention. Roseville is a member of the SRA. The neighbors, as well as the SRA, brought it to the attention of the PUC, and we have established a menu of outages if residents, businesses, and municipal pumping have outages of a certain duration or a multiple of them during the year, and there is a schedule that XL must automatically then credit those customers each year. And I did provide a letter from XL, which is their report for 2022, for 2021 outage credits for residents and municipal pumping, both large and small. And that is $712,000 back to the ratepayers, including municipalities, clearly shared by Hastings in proportion, among others. The SRA does not make deals only applicable to the members. We represent all cities or residents, and so any benefit derived in a utility context before the Public Utilities Commission is available to all. So it's not just the member. That's a common question. But again, in my decades now with this organization, I see it as very beneficial to municipalities, their residents, at times small businesses we will look at, particularly if they're not treated in the same way as other geographically situated customers of the utilities, or there is just bad policy. And again, that's not all the SRA does. We certainly were active in the legislation of right-of-way management rules that I'm sure Hastings has, and pretty much all cities around the state, in managing electric, telecommunications, cable, and other bodies that serve customers. I think I'll stop there. There are a couple of other items, but that I hope you have an idea of what we do. We meet quarterly with the board. The attendance is good because the quorum requirement is high, and there is really great interaction among delegates, many of them public works directors, city engineers, some elected officials, some city administrators. So it's been a very, I think, vibrant body over the years. So I'll close with, Hastings is a valued member, and Hastings goes way, way back. We have old records of original members, and Hastings was among them. So we certainly hope it will continue to be a member.
Thank you, Mr. Strumman. Council discussion, Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm so glad that you're here. I've had two pressing questions that I've wondered about, I've been pondering the last several months. The first is in regards to cable franchise agreements and fees that are associated with them. As more and more people are beginning to dump cable, television, and just going, to utilizing the internet for streaming services and such, that's a real loss of revenue for municipalities that have cable franchise agreements. For instance, I know Councilmember Brox has sat on our own, right, the Hastings Community TV. And so I was wondering, and I don't understand the issue thoroughly enough, but it's my understanding it has something to do with, it's a federal regulation that allows the cable franchise fees. And so my question is this: why is it that you can regulate cable franchise fees, but we're not able to assess for those same distribution lines, for fiber, right? Why can't we have franchise fees for the cable as technology transitions to moving away from traditional cable to just internet-based types of communications? And so, because we're losing revenue, and I was wondering how it is that we could stop that bleed.
Yes, Councilmember Foltz, you've really put your finger on an interesting issue as cable relates to CenturyLink or Lumen providing, internet services or fiber. First of all, I should say this, and I mentioned cable when I talked about the right-of-way management. Cable falls outside of the Joint Powers Agreement of the SRA, so we don't directly address cable issues. But I can answer your question, because the federal law does allow the 5% franchise fee that is, I assume, assessed on your cable provider or providers. It is the same federal law and state law that does not empower cities to charge franchise fees on telecommunication providers. It's a matter of legislative power that has to be delegated to the cities and is not in that context. And so gas and electric, you have franchise and franchise fee power and authority. You no longer have it for anything that is in the telecommunications realm. They don't pay franchise fees to operate in the city. And the exception to that is cable by virtue of the federal and state law that allows it. And so there's kind of an anomaly in there. And it's tough as they structure their services to get outside of the cable. And you're right, cable is struggling. It's losing businesses, and then you lose revenue. But it's a legislative issue.
So it is a state legislative issue?
Well, it is a state.
Also a federal?
Well, you have the federal law that enables cable franchises. You have no federal law that enables you to charge franchise fees, and you have no state law that allows franchise fees on the other services. So you can't do it without that enabling legislation.
So you first need federal, and then you can
Right.
have authorization.
So if you imposed it, and it's happened over the years, a city said, well, we're going to charge franchise fees to this local telephone provider or video provider, and they will challenge it and win, in a court, because the city has to find its authority granted to it by the legislature in order to do it, and that in Minnesota has been terminated. It might seem unfair, especially in the environment right now,
Right.
but it would be a matter for legislative change.
Okay, can I ask one other follow-up question? My second question was in regards to, for electric utilities, specifically for electric vehicle charging stations, the high-capacity chargers, and even the level 2 chargers. When they're not hooked up to another electric meter, the surcharges that are accompanied, with the charging station make it so extremely expensive. And so is there any effort to, as Xcel Energy has been moving forward into trying to, get their foot in, they just pivoted and they've decided that they're going to start getting into the market of providing EV chargers and such. And they have such an advantage over anyone else within the market then, because they have a monopoly, obviously, over that within the regions that they serve. And so is there any effort to try to negotiate better surcharges for EV charging stations with the utility providers that are in the state, and they kind of hold a monopoly within regions?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up. That's a very current topic. We, a couple of my associates, met with Xcel on this issue just a couple of weeks ago, because the Public Utilities Commission is looking very, very closely at electrification, electric vehicles, charging stations, and many other issues that they're not going away. They're coming and they're not going away.
Oh, like a freight
As
train.
far as Xcel is concerned, and other retailers, if you will, who could put up charging stations, that issue, we don't believe that Xcel has a monopoly on charging stations that no one else can come.
Providing the electricity to them and being able to dominate
They-
that surcharge, because it's the surcharge that's the killer.
Yeah, and they
Surge
do,
charge.
and they do have the monopoly on
Yeah.
providing electric. But Xcel and whoever installs charging stations, which the city has some authority over in local regulation. They can't simply be dictated to on, there are going to be charging stations here, 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 and here. You have zoning authority of right-of-way management, all of that. But I think the rub is going to be, XL is going to want to put up its charging stations, and obviously it's using its own power. And then is it going to be fair to competitors who want to come in? I think the city is going to have something to say about that. I think the PUC is going to have something to say about the rates that would be charged, so that they don't make it that their electricity, is pumped up. So, hey, come to our charging stations because it's a much lower rate. I think they have to be, one of the principles of rate making is that rates must be uniform to class members. So they can't surcharge competitors out of business, let's put it that way. If that's your question about the
Yeah.
electric source.
Competitiveness, yeah.
But it's among other new issues, it's becoming much more important to cities too. We're certainly hearing that. Our firm does represent cities, and this EV issue is really becoming more of interest for parking ramps and development conditions and things like that.
Yes, thank you for the answer. Thanks. Glad that you're here. I know I sound like a geek when I ask those questions, but they really are big issues. Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Thank you, Mr. Strummond.
Thank you very much for that.
Council members, are there any corrections to the minutes from the regular meeting on September 19th? Okay. Public comments. We have options for comments to be emailed prior to the meeting, as well as interactive feature during the meeting. For the emailed comments, they have been forwarded to the city council and their receipt is acknowledged. Please recognize that items not on the agenda will not be discussed this evening. For live comments, they may either be through Zoom or in person. We ask that attendees either raise their hand in person or use the raised hand feature on Zoom. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the council at this time? Thank you. Okay, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Barb Hollenbeck, 212 East 2nd Street. I'm here on behalf of the Arts Task Force as the chair. I'd like to comment on an upcoming recommendation that's coming on this agenda later this evening, and that is the recommendation of the Public Arts Commission going forward. And I just wanted to be here to thank everyone for their support and encourage, I know the debate was kind of challenging and interesting. We're bringing a new concept to the city council, and I just wanted to express my gratitude on behalf of the Arts Task Force on entertaining the recommendation and all the discussion and support through city staff. I know it's a new concept, and the recommendation provides a 2-year window. I feel with the amount of work that the task force has done, the Arts and Culture Commission, when it's established, is going to prove itself very useful and has that 2-year window, which I think was a great compromise for a new concept to go forward and give that window an area of a space to prove itself. And I'm sure in that 2-year window, the Arts and Culture Commission is going to prove itself to be a valuable asset to the city of Hastings. So thank you for your recommendation.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, anyone else wish to speak to the council at this time? And I see no one on Zoom. All right, council, are there any items to be considered? Okay, council, I would accept a motion to, okay. Dan Waticha would like to pull number 17 from the consent agenda. Be discussed at a later time. Council, I would accept a motion to accept the consent agenda excluding number 17, approve memorandum of understanding with Minnesota Teamsters Public and Law. Okay, Councilmember Brox and Councilmember Liefeld. Additional discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Tonight with us, we have Community Development Director, John Hinsman. Welcome, John, and he will be talking to us on a couple different things. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. Tonight I have before you a resolution for approval of a site plan for an addition to Intek Weather Seal Intek Plastics, which is located within our industrial park. This site plan is a portion of the overall development that we have been working with collectively with the Planning Commission, City Council, and HEDRA. So want to review a little bit of where we've been and what is going to be accomplished here with Intek. What we have before us officially tonight is the site plan approval, which looks something like this. You've got the existing 120,000 square foot Intek building, about a 60,000 square foot addition off the rear of the building. Now, this addition here will accomplish a lot of things. It's going to be about an $8 million expansion, bring 46 new jobs. That was also with the assistance of state agencies through Minnesota DEED, through the MIF and JCF funds, that we were able to bring about $1.4 million to assist Intek in their expansion. Intek has been a great company for Hastings. It's great to see that this expansion will provide more jobs and more security for residents of Hastings as we go into the future. So that's great to see all that together. We did have the site plan itself reviewed and approved by our Planning Commission at the last meeting on October 10th, unanimously with limited comments on that. We have not heard any objections or any comments from the neighbors here. So looking at the site plan itself, this is where it would be. There's two properties as part of this project. There is the main property that is located here, which they own presently. And this property over here, a little bit over 3 acres, which is owned by the city and is scheduled for transfer over to Intek in the near future. We're putting together the transfer agreement for consideration by the council on November 7th. We had HEDRA take a look at that. They recommended unanimous approval of that transfer. That transfer is necessary for a couple of things. One, for stormwater drainage for this existing facility and potentially further expansion in the future, as well as a roadway connection over to Enterprise Avenue. So this is what it looks like today. Doesn't look like much here. Roadway expansion. A lot of trees on the site right now. We have a tree preservation policy so that any tree that is taken out right now would need to be replaced, and we've reviewed that policy against the plans, and it is sufficient, and they'll be replacing one for one the trees that they would be taking out with this project here. So building itself would look very similar to what the building looks like today, tip-up concrete, nice looking building itself. So before you tonight officially is the site plan application itself. Looking for action on that with the resolution. And we do have representatives from Intek with us tonight as well, if you have any questions for them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Council, any questions or comments? Okay. If not, then I would look for a motion to approve the resolution of the City Council of the City of Hastings granting site plan approval for expansion of the Intek Plastics Building at 1000 Spiral Boulevard. Councilmember Fulch and Councilmember Fox. Any discussion, council? Okay, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Good luck, and it's great to see an expansion coming to your business and to our city, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John.
Thank you. All right, moving on here, another project that we've been working on for some time here with lots of great benefits, and that is the Confluence. We have a couple of actions before you tonight. This would be for the former Hudson manufacturing facility located at 200 West 2nd Street. Long history of that the council is well aware of. Our involvement of that goes back probably about 12, 13 years or so with the action of acquiring the building, partial demolition, environmental clearance, and then Confluence involvement in about 2016. With their involvement came a purchase and development agreement in which we have had subsequent amendments as we've moved forward. What we have before you tonight are a couple of actions related to that development. One of them is the Fifth Amendment to the Purchase and Development Agreement. This amendment would do two things. One, it would extend what's termed the substantial completion date from October 31st of this year to May 31st of next year. There's been some delays that have gone on, some equipment and equipment line things that have proved difficulties, some unforeseen circumstances within the building, but they're looking at that as the extension date at this point. One of the things that we've been doing is reviewing the progress on the building. We did that with Hedra at our last meeting on Thursday. Hedra took similar actions on these requests. I think a question that has been out there for the community and Hedra in particular, and perhaps the council, has been, you know, what has been happening at the building? We can see some changes on the outside of it, which are great. You know, how is the construction going along? Is this realistic to set this time frame up? And from the view of the building we had last week, showing all the interior construction that's going on with building, with electrical and HVAC and plumbing and setting up of walls, the building's really taking shape. And that May date certainly appears that that is something that can happen at this point. And so that would be the main portion of the amendment, is amending that date. The other thing that we're taking action on here was part of the last amendment we considered, and that is the establishment of what's termed a minimum assessment agreement. What the minimum assessment agreement does is it establishes a floor value on the valuation of that building for tax purposes. And so if wherever the building is come January 1st of 2023, that minimum valuation is agreed to be $5.7 million, in which the taxes are levied upon that. Bottom line is Confluence will be obligated to pay taxes on that $5.7 million regardless of where they are in construction at this point. That was something that was established as part of the last edition of the last amendment, and is something that is being further memorialized here with a separate agreement. So those are the actions that we have before us tonight. Hedra took similar action last Thursday on it. As I said before, they took the tour of the facility. This has been a long-term project. When Hedra was first enacted back in 2009, this is one of the first projects they overtake. And we've had lots of funds from the city and grant funds that have gone onto the project. We've had a tremendous commitment from Confluence Development to carry this project forward. This has not been an easy project. This is not a project in which it can be predicted as far as what is going to happen. And there's been certain items that were unexpected. But with this type of development, we've had a good working relationship with Confluence. We are so appreciative of the dedication that they've had towards this project. There may have been times in the past where another developer may have decided not to move forward with it. But I do believe in the very end here that we are going to see a tremendous project within downtown Hastings. When we took on this project in 2009, we wanted to create a bookend for the downtown. We wanted to provide a facility in which people who were crossing the yet-to-be-built Hastings Bridge would come across, see this, and want to stop in and partake in the downtown. That was the goal in the development of this property. We believe that this is going to be what is going to happen here in the near future. So I'll stand at that at this point. Two actions before you tonight, both the agreements, minimum purchase agreement, assessment agreement, and the Fifth Amendment to the Purchase and Development Agreement. And then we also have Pat Regan here from Confluence if you have any questions for him. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any discussion, council? No? Okay. Well, I was on that tour, and it was wonderful to see the movement that has been happening, and just to see the outside and the little things that are coming, you know, into play that we can visibly see as we drive down the road. It's very exciting, and, you know, 22, 23, what's the difference of the year, right? Let's just get it done. So, Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to echo some of the sentiments that John, you mentioned. I get to look at the beautiful building every day on my way to work and as I leave work, and it's clearly coming along at at a great pace. And this is certainly a frequently asked question, I think, that we all receive. And has it taken a lot of time? Yes. Will we see its completion in the nearish future? Absolutely, and it's something that we can all be very proud of, not only for the wonderful facility it will be, but for the partnerships and the work that the city has been able to partner on in this project. So thank you, John, for all of your diligence in this project as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Brox.
So as a member of Hedra, I did tour the facility last Thursday, and it really is something that will be beautiful. I think it's hard to share in a vision that you don't work in every day, and so we don't work in that building every day, but there are people that do, and that have a vision for how they hope it looks, and just being in there, being able to see all the framing that's been done, all the work of the bar will be here and the restaurant will be there, and just seeing it and standing in between the walls, I think helped me understand the vision for what is gonna be in there and share in it. So I am equally appreciative of the work that's been done. I think that when the community gets to come in, that they'll also share and understand what a wonderful asset is, and it has been a process over a long period of time. And I don't think any of us understands the ins and outs of that more than Pat and his team, but I am appreciative of it, and standing in there, I can see how beautiful it will be, and I look forward to seeing it come to completion. So I hope the community soon gets to experience it and see the vision, because I think once you walk in there, it'll be like, oh, this is what we were waiting for, so.
And it will be worth it, yes. Okay. Council, I would accept a motion to approve the Fifth Amendment of Purchase and Development Agreement and the Minimum Assessment Agreement. Councilmember Liefeld? Councilmember Fulch? Additional discussion, Council? Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. I echo Councilmember Fox's enthusiasm for this project, and but I know that there's the little patio platform, I'm not sure how else to describe it, that's down by the trail system there on the river, that's supposed to be available for the public to reserve. And the last time this subject came forward, I had asked again about how is it that folks could schedule to be able to use that platform that's down there. And I've had a busy summer and not a lot of opportunity to enjoy the trails, but I haven't seen it being used. And I haven't seen it publicized anywhere, and so I was wondering where we were with that so that the public can use that space.
Sure. I'll give what I know on it, and perhaps Pat may add some further detail on it. With that platform, you're correct, where there is a public use agreement over that land there where the platform is, the observation platform is. And so there's public rights over that, owned privately by Confluence, but public rights over that for use. I would expect that any reservations of that are going to be handled through IDM Hospitality, who is the management entity for the hotel and restaurant. And they had mentioned at Hedra that they have done a new landing page for the Confluence Hotel, and they'll be taking reservations for the hotel and facilities here in the near future. So I would suspect that would also include that platform as well. And Pat, is that fairly accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
December 1, the reservation system goes live.
Okay, so December 1, the
Website's live now.
yeah, website's live now, reservation system live December 1st.
Okay, and there'll be more details about, I don't think that there was going to be a cost as long as Confluence didn't use it, you weren't using it for like an event of your own you doing, that it was available then for free for the public to be able to use. I guess it's been over a year, I think it's been more like a year and a half that platform has been there and available to be used, and no one's been able to use it, and I've never seen it in use other than, Confluence sponsored events. And so I guess if it's public land and all along it's supposed to have been, available for folks to be able to utilize in such an absolutely beautiful spot, it's just kind of a travesty that it hasn't been able to be used, and that we haven't figured out any of the details as to how it is that would be available for the public. And so I would love to see that sooner rather than later. I'm not sure exactly why, I'm sure that there's a bazillion issues and details that go into the actual construction of the building within itself, and so I can respect that. But it seems like that there's an obligation to the public for them to be able to use that platform, since such a considerable amount of public dollars have gone into in an investment in this redevelopment. And so I'm not sure, and I think I'd ask City Administrator Dan Waticha if you could please address this as to whose responsibility is that, to figure out. It seems like it's been bounced around back and forth and back and forth. And I would just really like to see that resolved. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Dan?
I have not looked at it in at least a year, but I believe that is addressed in the Public Use Maintenance Agreement, the PUMA as we call it, which was negotiated 4, 5, 6 years ago. So it's called out in there, and John's correct. That is something that would be the responsibility of the hotel for that reservation system.
Yeah, and I'd further add on that too. I mean, with the site itself being in construction, with the parking lot and landscaping and other things that were just finished up recently on there, the platform next to the trail, had some great amenities to it. But since the site was in construction and partially fenced off, it's a little bit of a disconnect there as far as the use of it. And I agree, it would be nice to be able to use that more than what it was. But as the construction site finishes up here and as the operation is really in place in the spring, I think we'll have greater opportunities at that point.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
There is a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Oppose that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Tonight under administration, we have a strategic initiative quarterly report and the next steps. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. Really, there's two parts to this, and no action. This really is just presented that if council has some review or discussion or feedback, whether it's tonight or over the next few weeks, it's certainly helpful and appreciated. The first item is, this is our quarterly written report to the council on progress on the strategic initiatives that were adopted a little over a year ago. And I recall that when we were discussing and developing the initiatives, there was concern that we wanted to make sure that these weren't just a plan that was put on a shelf and forgotten about. We wanted to make sure that they were addressed, and also that we reported back to council on progress as well as to the public. And these reports are housed on the city's website in order to make sure that everybody is aware of progress that's been achieved. I can certainly take any questions on the report itself. The other item is next steps. I don't know what else to refer to it as, but when we adopted this a little over a year ago, the thought was these are the goals for the next year to year and a half, not a specific timeline, but we're coming up on the end of that time frame. And as we come through to what's presumably another cycle of it and say, what are our goals for the next year, year and a half, want to have the council start thinking about that process. Not necessarily what are the priorities or initiatives for the next year, but looking back, what worked well, what's appropriate at this point in time as we go forward. I hope that the answer is we should do this again, but obviously that's one of the pieces that we should pose. And I think there's a couple of obvious ones that, well, we should do this in January when there's 2 or 3 new council members instead of hurrying up and doing it now before the end of the year. It would make sense for the new council to set those guidelines, the priorities for the coming year. But other questions such as Do you want to do it by Zoom again? I hope the answer is a resounding no. But questions about, do we do it as a full all-day retreat? Do we try to do it as a couple of 3-hour sessions, a little bit more manageable, but it means scheduling a couple of afternoons or evenings to work with? Do we do it as a greater series of meetings? Do we work with a facilitator again, or do it in-house? If a facilitator, do we work with Ethical Leaders in Action, Chad Weinstein again, or do we look for a different facilitator? So some of the process of how do we go about developing the priorities? How much do we build upon the existing ones, and how much do we start new and fresh for some new priorities? There's a section of the report that we've called affectionately the parking lot. How has that worked, and are there items from there that should be elevated to priority status for the coming year? How has the reporting worked? We've given, as you have here tonight, a quarterly written report. It's something that not the city council, the management team looks at monthly, and stuff that I talk with individuals, department heads frequently also. But has that reporting process worked? So really just trying to look for some feedback over the next month and a half, so that come January and some new council members, we can hit this right away, rather than starting the priorities in June or July. We'd rather get it early in the year. So whether it's tonight, over the next few weeks, would appreciate your insights and advice on the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Council, any discussion? Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think that makes sense, to wait until the new year, and it would also be a really good opportunity for the new council members just to come up to speed, to really understand this issue, and so that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate all the hard work that staff have been putting into maintaining and chiseling away at these initiatives, and I think it's that there are some really great ideas in here, and something that I know it's difficult to, give enough information, because there's so many initiatives that are listed in here. But I think one thing that just would have been nice is just to periodically take one section of this and dedicate at a council meeting and give a verbal update, because a lot of these just kind of say, like ongoing, they just have very, it just says in progress. It doesn't provide a lot of the detail. And so I think it would be just very useful for us just to hear, like every council meeting, if there was just 10 minutes given to one section to provide, where that there had been more of a headway. Like something that I had been keenly interested in was for the downtown business district, looking at having a different opportunity there for a taxing district, so that they can collect additional revenue that could be used for improvements, for, to bring in more tourism and such. And so there are some key initiatives in here I'd love to understand a little bit better. And I know that, Dan, you're always awesome, and you're like, if you guys have questions, let me know. But it would just, I think the whole group would probably benefit from just hearing, on some of these issues a little bit more often. So thank you for all your work. I know it's a lot.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Right. Are you thinking of a reply?
My light's off.
All right.
Okay, any other discussion, council? All right, no action needed. Then moving forward, we have the Public Arts Commission, and Dan, you may continue.
This one also is for discussion. There's no action requested tonight, because our charter holds that creating a commission is by ordinance, and anticipate that we will have the first reading ordinance at our November 7th meeting in a couple of weeks. As commented earlier during the public comments, earlier this spring, late spring, early summer, the Arts Task Force had brought forth the recommendation, and the primary thrust of that was to create a formal Arts Commission. The matter was referred to the City Council's Planning Committee of Council. They met several times over it and had discussions. Their ultimate recommendation was, let's do a 2-year ordinance. Let's give it a chance to prove itself and succeed. We want it to succeed, but there was also some concern that being a new entity or a new direction, it might be frustrated, or council might have frustrations just in terms of there's times, as you can see even in this process, there's times that city action might be slow or have certain procedures or processes that it needs. There's budget limits, and just for a number of reasons, wanted to make sure that it didn't wind up stymied or frustrated and be, I don't want to say stuck with, but in some fashion stuck with something that isn't what we want or isn't as successful as we want. So the recommendation was a 2-year prove it, and I think that they will. And expect we would have the first reading ordinance in a couple of weeks. But with that, I can take questions. 2 of the 3 members of the Planning Committee of Council are also here this evening, and they may have other insight or pieces that they would speak to it, but really it's presenting the recommendation. There's no action this evening.
Thank you, Dan. Council, any discussion? Councilmember Fulch.
I just wanted to thank the members of the Arts Task Force who are here in the audience today, and members of HPAC who have been big supporters of this initiative. The council committee that was discussing this, we met 3 times on it, and so there was a lot of conversation and consideration that was brought into it. We asked for input from staff to understand a little bit better what their concerns were, and to really, vet through and really thoroughly understand what was being brought forward. And so I'm extremely grateful for all of the dedication and enthusiasm for this initiative that the community has brought forward. I think that there's a lot of potential here for assisting in bringing in more tourism into our community. We are so blessed with such beautiful natural amenities in our downtown historic area. Has just really is booming, and I think that this is just bringing our game up that one additional level, and to be incorporating the arts more greatly into our fabric of our city planning and such. And so I appreciate all of the thoughts that Councilmember Liefeld and Councilmember Vaughn brought forward. I've been intimately involved in the Arts Task Force this last year, and so sometimes it's hard, when you're so ingrained and you're like so enthusiastic about something, to take 2 steps back and really to understand other folks' what their concerns are. And so I think that the 2-year time frame on the commission is an opportunity for them to prove themselves, and then if need be, corrective action could happen, within 2 years. But I'm hoping that for the best, and things are going to go great, and I think it's just going to be a wonderful opportunity for our community to develop. So thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Any other comments, Council? Okay. Councilmember Fox.
Thanks, Your Honor. I am beyond thrilled about this meeting in the middle here. It is almost 10 years since Dr. Kazar brought her economic report to the city as a presentation to tell us what the arts do in terms of economic tourism and economic growth in our city. And I think taking these big steps is a really important moment for the arts community in Hastings and for the city as a whole. So I'm excited and want to thank the committee for finding a spot in the middle that we can be comfortable with and giving an opportunity for a new idea and a new style of doing something. So thank you for being here today as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. I too will thank you. It is exciting, and you've worked really hard. I sat in on one of your meetings, if not one, maybe two, and just the collaboration that you all have and your thought process and what is best for our community was just really, I was fond to be there for the short time that I was able to be there. So I thank you, and you have 2 years to prove to us, and pretty sure you will. So thank you all for being here. Okay, at this point, council, any announcements? Yes, Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to provide a quick update. As I had mentioned in the past, that the League of Minnesota Cities, which the League of Minnesota Cities is almost all of the cities, within our state. They come together underneath this umbrella, and they put forward every year a book of policy initiatives for municipalities to advocate for. And so there's 4 committees, and I am chairing one of them this year. It's the Improving Service Delivery Committee. And we have recently finalized our work as a committee, and we're bringing forward on Thursday to the League of Minnesota Cities Board the recommendations for what we've been working on. Our committee has the widest array of issues in its jurisdiction, and I just wanted to name a few of these because the League is still taking comments through October 31st on all of the policies that are going to be brought forward for consideration to the board. But so just real quick, I just wanted to touch upon 5 of them, which I'm sure folks here are going to be interested in. 2 are related to ambulance services, and we here in Hastings have our fire service also has an ambulance service for those who don't know that. We have substantive changes that we're recommending. The first one is that I brought forward, which is it's number 14, ambulance service costs and liability. The committee is recommending adding a provision stating if the federal government does not increase Medicaid and Medicare rates in the immediate future to fully reimburse providers for the cost of treating and transporting patients, the state should provide additional funding to offset that gap, because there's a bleed that's happening in many cities like our own where then we as taxpayers have to make up that gap that the federal government isn't providing coverage for. And the second is it's SD 15, emergency medical services. The committee here is recommending adding several provisions to the policy, including modifying the membership of the MSRB to include representatives of municipal ambulance services to make sure that we're properly represented, and requiring that the MSRB submit biennial reports to emergency medical services delivery data points for each local unit of government to appropriate legislative committees. And that has to deal with, here we obviously have our own ambulance provider, but there are jurisdictions where it's a third-party entity that is providing that. And there's been problems where there hasn't been what we would consider, responsible timeframes for, sending a response to those who need it. And so that's to ensure that all of our communities have high levels of ambulance services that are being provided to our residents. 2 or 3 real quick new policies that are being recommended. The first is in regards to fundraising authority. While cities have the authority to accept gifts, for instance, like for our parks, a previous opinion from the Office of State Auditor has indicated that cities lack authority to fundraise. So this policy is to allow municipalities to solicit charitable donations for the purposes of certain projects or resources that are needed for city services. The second is regulation of cannabinoid cannabinoid, I'll say that 5 times, cannabinoid, the gummy law, no, cannabinoid products. So this policy is in response to the new law that was enacted in 2020, and that allows, the sale of certain edible products containing hemp-derived THC. This policy reflects the need for the legislature to address regulatory, public safety, employment, taxation, and public health concerns arising from the law. The League of Minnesota Cities just recently did a 1-hour overview of this particular issue, which I was just told that they're making that available for everybody to review on their website if anybody wants to watch that further. And then the third issue is collateral consequences and expungements. This policy addresses collateral consequences on housing, employment, professional licensure, et cetera, for criminal records by rehabilitated individuals. This policy balances the importance of ensuring public safety and meeting victim interests. And so this is something that public defenders have brought forward and have been advocating that the league have a position on this to make sure that as it says, that victims, that their interests are also being balanced in this. And so there are many, many more new items that are out there, and I just wanted to draw attention to that so folks are aware that if any of you would like to review those and provide comment, we haven't had a discussion about any of the legislative policy initiatives that have been moving forward as a council here in Hastings, but now is the time if any of these things perk your interests. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. I will have a few announcements, and then we'll go into closed session. Afterward, we'll briefly return to open session to formally adjourn the meeting. HCTV and Hastings Chamber of Commerce will host their Hastings Candidate Forum on Thursday, October 20th at 6:30 p.m. in person and televised. Their ISD 200 School Board Candidate Forum is on Thursday, October 27th, and that is at 7 p.m., but it is televised only. The one this Thursday will be here at City Hall. Sunday, October 23rd is BR4R invites you to Breaking the Silence, Remembering Brown's Chapel, AME at First Presbyterian Church at 2 p.m., following by a guided walking, driving tour of significant locations from the Hastings Black history. The first Hastings Creative Convergence is Tuesday, October 25th at 7 p.m. Thank you to Hastings Arts Center for providing the venue and the Onion Grill and Greek Haven Coffee for donating refreshments. The Hastings Community Halloween Party is Friday, October 28th from 6 to 8 at the Hastings High School. Recommended for families with kids 12 and under. Free event, but please bring a non-perishable food item for the Hastings Family Service or cash or check donation for the Youth Impact Council Scholarship. I'd like to recognize the coming up October 28th is National First Responder Day, and thank you to all of our first responders and their services to the community. Meetings are as follows. Tuesday, October 18th, 7 p.m., Heritage Preservation Commission. Wednesday, October 19th at 6:30 p.m., Finance Committee. Thursday, October 20th, 6:30 p.m., Public Safety Advisory Commission. Monday, October 24th, 7 p.m., Planning Commission. And Monday, November 7th, City Council regular meeting. At this time, oh, yes. Did you mention the candy crawl? I did not. You may.
I would like to mention the Downtown Business Association's annual Halloween candy crawl, downtown Hastings, Sunday, October 30th, from 2 to 5 p.m. Family-friendly event. Come and trick or treat at all of the downtown businesses and have a great time. Hopefully we'll have another beautiful day and we'll have some superhero sightings and such down there. So hopefully we'll see everyone on Sunday the 30th. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any? Okay. Litigation counsel for the city, George Hoff, has asked that city council meet in closed-door session for an attorney-client privileged discussion of litigation strategy in the matter of Greg J. Holmes of Hastings, Inc. versus City of Hastings. Mr. Hoff and our city attorney, Corey Land, are both present. Confidentially is necessary in order to allow a candid and open discussion with the city council about the litigation, including defense strategies and possibilities for resolution. Such a discussion happening in an open session could jeopardize the city's legal position. Closing the meeting is authorized by Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3B. I will therefore seek a motion to move into a closed-door session at this time. Councilmember Lund? Councilmember Fox? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed to that?